All right, guys, in today's video, we're working on a problem on a 2000 Toyota Camry where the driver's side door lock no longer activates. You can't unlock it or lock it from outside with the key. You can unlock it and lock it from the inside, and the power door locks are fine, but you can't actually activate it from the outside. So we've gone ahead and pulled the lock off with the handle assembly so we can diagnose this problem. I'll show you how to reassemble it and get it all put back together in this video. Basically, the problem is with the key, it won't turn. Right, it's jammed up. And if we take a look on the outside lock assembly, now we can see it's not turning at all. Now sometimes this can be a problem where the key is worn, but this key works fine and all of the other locks as well as the passenger side. So it's not likely to be because of the key itself. It's a problem with the lock's cylinder internally here. And there's a lot of play on this guy. So it's just, 22 years of wear, 22 plus years of wear. That's the problem. So to fix this, what we're going to do is we're going to pop in a new Toyota part, a 69052-33200, which is a new lock cylinder and key set. Now, there's a catch with this part, right? So this just bolt right on here in place of this OEM part. We'll replace it with another OEM part. Don't mess around with aftermarket stuff on there. It's just going to give you problems. But the catch with something like this is it comes with new keys. And so if you just install it as is, then you're going to end up with an extra set of keys, one for this door and one for the other doors. What you're going to want to do is you want to take this to a locksmith and have them key it to your VIN so it matches your original key so you still stay with just one key. So we're going to take this over to the locksmith, get them to rekey it for our key, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with the repair. The other thing that we're going to do at the same time while we're there, we're going to go ahead and have them replace this aftermarket key with a brand new Toyota key, a 9999-00185, which is an OEM Toyota key blank. So we'll take care of both those jobs at the locksmith, and then we'll pick it up. All right, guys, we're back from the locksmith, and we got our parts. And let me show you, before we put it all back together, where we're at. So here's our original key, right? And so we could not turn this lock either way. If we take a look at the cylinder and we zoom in here, right, and we see these individual wafers inside the lock cylinder, they're all kind of up. Normally when you put the key in, they're supposed to drop down. But what we see is the ones in the middle don't drop down, right? That's part of why this isn't working right. It's a combination of two things. The key's worn and the springs inside the cylinder are worn. The wafers that touch the top of the key and the grooves are worn. So all three things are worn. So that's why we had two parts, right? We had both a lock cylinder and a new key. And you have to do both to fix this problem. So here's our new lock cylinder, all keyed up. And now it turns left and it turns right, the way we would expect. But if we take our new key and put it in our old lock, it turns to the right, but it still won't turn to the left. So it's more than just the key. You have to have the key and the lock when you have this kind of wear. It's like over 20 years of wear, both problems are going to crop up. The other thing, too, is you have to go to a locksmith that's got experience doing automotive. You don't want to cut a copy of the worn key. If you cut a copy of the worn key, you'll get exactly the same behavior. You also don't want to cut the key from the VIN alone. If you cut the key from the VIN alone, it won't have any wear, and then it'll start binding up in the other locks like the ignition cylinder. So what the locksmith has to do is he cuts the key from the VIN and then he ages it. He wears it down, not to the 22 years that we have here, but enough that it will work in the older keys without a problem. So we take a look here at our passenger side. Our new key still works just fine, just like the old key did. All right, so now we've got a setup that works everywhere. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go about reinstalling this. Now I brought over the passenger one also to show you the factory setup is going to be 10 millimeter bolts, the two that hold it to the door frame and the one that holds it to the door handle. This aftermarket one on the driver's side is using a Phillips type screw, so that's not Toyota. These 10 millimeter ones are Toyota, so that's what you should expect to see. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go back to the car and put all this back together. All right, guys, so like I said, this Phillips type fastener isn't factory, but that's what we have on this one. So we're going to remove that first so we can take out the old lock cylinder and install the replacement. And what you should have here is, like I showed you on the passenger side, you should have a 10 millimeter bolt holding this all together. But this guy just comes straight off like that. And this aftermarket setup is not what you'd normally see. It's got like a washer and some kind of a piece that goes inside. To put it back in, we're just going to reverse it. And again, stressing to you, you won't have all these different pieces on the factory setup. I guess what we got here is this little insert has just worked its way out. So let me get him back inside the aftermarket plastic. Then we'll put the washer back on there. Then we'll mount our cylinder. And if we were doing a factory setup, we would just be putting the 10 millimeter bolt in right here. Now, I didn't find any torque specs for this bolt in any of the factory documentation. Lots of torque specs on every other kind of bolt. Nothing for this one. So what we're going to do here is Guten tight. All right, and so now this guy is ready to mount. Now, I'm going to show you on the passenger side, just so it looks more original with the 10 millimeter bolts, reversing this and reassembling it so you can get a feel for it. So I'm going to get a flashlight in here so you can see where these two rods connect, because that's probably the hardest part of the whole thing. So we'll go take a look up from inside the door panel, and then we'll slowly reverse what we took apart so you'll see how to take it apart. All right, guys, so again, we're going to do the passenger side here. Move this retaining clip in and out of the way. Come in on the outside. You want to put the handles piece up in first. And then you want to slide it a little bit forward. You see there's a little notch cut out right here. And that's to accommodate the lever on the lock. Right? So slide it forward. With that tucked in, she'll go in there. And then if you look through this access hole, this is where one of the 10 millimeter bolts goes. So it's right in the back here. Now I'm trying to figure out how I can get you guys to see this. Get it started, and then we'll go zoom in here so you can see it. All right, so right there. Right there. So that's one of the 10 millimeter bolts. We're going to go ahead and tighten him up first. Not going to go all the way because we haven't set the second one in yet, but just so you can familiarize yourself with where it is. All right, so that's one. Now the other one is through this hole here. So we'll move the light again. All right, guys, there he is right there. We zoom in a little bit, right? You just got to make sure you get it lined up, and trying to get it zoomed in a little bit so maybe it'll focus back here instead of on the bar, but it looks like it just wants to focus on the bar. But again, get this guy started by hand. Just got to be real careful you don't get him cross-threaded. All right, there he goes. All right, now these started, we'll go in here with a 10 millimeter and we'll do them both good and tight. There's no torque spec provided for either of these, just like the one that holds the lock. All right, guys, so to get this rod here on that controls the power door locks, you got to put the key in the lock, and you got to turn it. In the case of this passenger side, we're going to turn it to the rear of the vehicle, and that's going to bring this guy down. Now, I'm not actually going to be able to hook this up because I can't get my hand in all the way without blocking your view, but we're going to put that right into the hole for this guy when we get it on this down position, right? So we're going to lift it up and we're going to slide it into this guy. I can't, like I said, I can't really see it well enough to do it. And then when we're done, we're going to slide this little retainer down onto the rod. All right, so this is the before view. Let me plug it in and I'll show you the after view. All right, guys, so see, you can hear the door lock going. We've got it latched into position now. Okay, I just pushed it back in all the way. And I'm trying to blindly push this retainer in. There it goes. All right, so this guy's in now, right? You can see right there on the very back where there's some kind of reddish grease coming out of those two white tabs right there. That's where the rod pushes into. All right, let's go do the door handle one now. This one's easy. All right, so you can get access to this through one of these little holes in the door. I'm going to lift the retainer up on this guy. And I'm going to push him through, right, just like that. And I'm going to bring this retainer down and lock it into place. And if we come out, you can see we did all of that through this little hole right here, right below the corner of the window. All right, now let's start putting the rest of the trim back on. All right, now we're going to put back on this kind of rain sealant. And stretch this back into position. This hole goes right here. And the reason that hole goes there in just a minute I'll show you, but you can kind of follow the witness marks from where this guy stuck on before. The reason he goes right there is you're going to have this guy put back in, which is where there's a push pin. So again, we're going in the opposite direction to what you'll do, but this will help give you an idea about how you get access to here. All right, the next thing is going to be this metal trim plate. You can see there are 3 green nylon nuts that these stainless screws are going to go into. This is one of the most crucial ones to take off because this gives you enough room to get your hand up in there. And again, there's no real torque value on these. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten this and move on to the next step. Next step is the door panel. You want to make sure that these little plastic pieces that hold it onto the door are all present. There's 4 of them. If you're missing some, I'll put a link in the description so you can get them replaced. So to put this guy back on, we're going to hook it along the top of the door here, but first we're going to run the electrical cables through for the switches for the windows and the locks, right? Just get that started first. And then you're going to hook this top part into this channel. It's got a little bit of catch to it. But you'll be able to feel when you've got it in there. And when that feels like that's all the way down, then you can start hunting for where these white sockets push in. And just push them in until they snap. All right. The next thing we'll do is there's a number of these fasteners that you take off. One goes right here. And that's covered by a little trim clip. It goes right there and snaps onto the top of the fastener. Now we can put this switch back in. Snap. And snap. Tab in the front. Clip in the back. So it goes in like this and snaps in. Now we can put this guy back on. Now this one, I guess I should take off a second and show you. This one has a little hook right here that's going to go on this side. All right, so we're going to get that in the front, and then we're going to snap it in. Now, there's a trick to getting it off. It snaps in here and here. So to get it off, you have to stick a tool like a flathead screwdriver in at the bottom and the top. And that'll work this off. That's the only way to get this off without breaking it. And you can see right there is where the locking tab goes on the bottom, and there's a very similar one on this side on top that you can see up here, right? That's what snaps on. Now, there's a little door here that you can open with a little pick, and there's going to be another Phillips screw that goes in there. Run him down, and then we can close the little door. And again, you know, this is the opposite. This is the reassembly part. You'll go through this for the assembly part. All right, so now there's a little push pin on this side. That was that little white bracket that we put on here. So the pin goes in there. The male part goes into this after you put the female part in, and you can push it in all the way to lock it. And that expands that out, and that holds on to that white bracket that we saw. Now we've got two very large Phillips, you know, Japanese style Phillips, I should say. Whoops. Here. I'm going to run this guy in first. And then we're going to run another one in here. Same type. All right. Now we've got two more small hex head Phillips screws. Right? And they go way down here. One's here. And one is here. At the very top corner of the door, we've got this trim panel. It's got a male piece that goes into this female piece, and then two clips down here. Lined up, snap it in. Last thing we've got is there's a little plug, a decorative plug that covers up this hole. Now sometimes you have to twist this around a few times to get the alignment right. But that's it. We've got the whole thing put back together, so now let's test it. All right, guys, final test. One time to the left is going to do a lock. One time to the right is going to do an unlock of the driver. But if we do it twice in that direction, we can see that our back locks unlock, and they also lock. So we've got this guy working the way it's supposed to with driver's side as well as all of them. If you got questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below and I'll try to help. I hope this helped you out. If you found this useful or it saved you some money so you can do your own repairs, please take a moment to hit that like button. And as always, thanks for watching.